us now from Tehran is Mohammad Marandi. He's the Dean of the Faculty of World Studies at the University of Tehran. Dr. Marandi, we just heard from the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu there. He says Iran can't be trusted, that the world is a more dangerous place right now with this nuclear deal. And you would say what to that?
Well, I think the first thing that comes to mind is the fact that the Israeli regime has, according to some reports, up to 400 nuclear weapons, and Iran doesn't have any nuclear weapons. On the other hand, the Israeli regime has initiated wars on neighboring regions, such as in Lebanon, in Jordan, Syria, and Egypt. And just last year, it killed huge numbers of innocent people in Gaza in the more recent war that they waged. Whereas on the other hand, the Iranians over the last couple of hundred years have never initiated any war. And the war that Saddam Hussein imposed on Iran, where weapons of mass destruction were used by Saddam Hussein and with Western support, the Iranians in response did not use chemical weapons or any weapons of mass destruction. So Iran's history and Iran's past is completely different from that of the Israeli regime.
There's a great deal of debate going on in the United States right now about this deal, about whether it should be approved by the U.S. Congress. And we know that there is sentiment in Congress leaning towards vetoing this deal, not approving it. Should that happen, how will Iran respond?
Well, if the United States fails to accept the agreement, the Iranians will not initiate any process in implementing the agreement. The agreement will be dead. But I think it would be clear to the international community that the United States is the side that has wrecked the deal. A lot of work has gone into coming to this agreement. In Iran, there is a very important debate going on between people who have differing views about the agreement. But if the Iranians are to implement it, despite its negative elements, the negative elements that may exist in it, and the positive elements that may exist in it, the Americans, too, must come to the recognition that the only way forward for rapprochement with Iran in any way or form is through the implementation of the agreement, whether there are elements within it that the Americans like or dislike. I think that if the Americans choose to reject the agreement, that itself would help bring down the sanctions regime, because the international community will begin to ignore the United States and the U.S. government.
Another argument being made by opponents of this deal, they say, look, this doesn't go far enough. This actually allows Iran to retain its ability to enrich uranium. We want the entire nuclear infrastructure in Iran to be completely dismantled. Nothing should be left. Do you see any scenario, any circumstance in which Iran will agree to that?
No, of course not. And I think those people are living in the past. The revolution in Iran was about independence from U.S. hegemony, and it was about sovereignty and dignity and freedom from the United States. And Iran's pursuit of a peaceful nuclear program is something that is within the framework of international law, and under no circumstances will the Iranians allow the United States to prevent it from accessing peaceful nuclear energy. The Americans have pursued this path for over a decade, and it has gotten them nowhere. They have created a very barbaric and inhumane sanctions regime that has made ordinary Iranians suffer. But both the government of Iran continue to support the peaceful nuclear program, and according to polls, multiple polls, many of them carried out by American institutions, the Iranian population throughout this period of time continue to support Iran's pursuit for a peaceful nuclear program. So sanctions and threats are simply not going to work. If the Americans want to have some sort of agreement with Iran, if they want to decrease sanctions, if they want to put aside their irrational hostility towards Iran, then the United States has to recognize Iran's rights as a sovereign and independent country.
Dr. Mohammad Marandi, thanks for joining us, sir.